Welcome back. Uncle Chris here, college admissions. Episode 2 is about me. I read a book sometime in graduate school. I think it almost clearly was graduate school, where we were learning about how to educate students. And they said, you got to have the content. You got to know the content of the class. But you also need to understand that the student needs to know who they're learning from, not just what they're learning. It always stuck with me. I was like, what does it matter? Like, it's just math, or in my case, history, right? But it does matter because people respond very differently to different people. And so sort of explaining to the audience who you are, I think is important, which is what I'm doing here. So I made a joke that I'm the best college counselor in the world. It's a joke, but there is some part of me that believes that for this reason. I've been in all 3 boxes of college admissions, okay? In the old days, there were 2 boxes, and you'll hear college admissions people call it either one side or the other of the desk, okay? What's the desk? Desk is, I'm a college admissions professional at a university. I'm wearing like a tweed jacket. I got a bow tie. There's books all around me, and I'm sitting at my desk, okay? Now there's another person that arrives in my office, and it's like the old days, and he's got a briefcase. And, good morning, old sport. How are you today? And, oh, good heavens, how are you? And those 2 people are talking. One of them works at a university. The other one works at a high school. And the one at the high school says, here are the upstanding young men that you should admit to your university, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's the sides of the desk. It's different now, obviously. There is no desk, and people sort of generally understand that they're applying directly to a college without the interference of this college counselor. And then there's this third space that exists now, which is consultants. And people like me, I was in that position for some time. I'm not now. I'll get to that. So consultants are in like a whole new box. Okay, there are, from the bottom of the rung, there's like the lady down the street whose kid went to college. She kind of knows what she's doing, so she helps out other moms. Okay, that's like easy. And then the top of the rung are people that charge $100,000, and it gets all sketchy. And you heard about some of these unscrupulous people cheating and famous people going to jail, and you heard about all that. Okay, so in that world, this now third space, there's a lot of stuff. Okay, so back to Chris. What happened? All right, what happened was I went into education as an adult, which makes a difference because I was already like 34 or something. Okay, I already had an MBA, and I already had my master's degree in education. And long story short, you don't need the whole story. I ended up taking a temporary position for 1 year because of a guy was taking a year off in the admissions department at MIT. Okay, so in the admissions department at MIT, you have a lot of smart people, and I learned 1,000 things, and I'll tell you a lot of those things I learned. But you also need to understand that admissions counselors generally are entry level. They're in their 20s. They're just doing what they're told. This is not a dig on college counselors. This is just or admissions counselors in this case. This is just understanding that they're not coming to it with an analytical point of view the way I was. Okay, so that's why I learned a lot in that side of the business. Then I moved on to private consulting. Okay, you know what that is. Then now, for the last 10 years, I work at a low-income public school. It's a very unique situation, but I'm on the high school side. All 3 sides covered, okay? So I can tell you what happens. That's the background. I'm quitting. We already got into that last episode. All right, there are a lot of other people, by the way, who are good at sort of describing things that are happening. I wanted to shout out a few of them. And I'm only going to recommend to you people, like I told you in episode 1, who do this from like the negative perspective, not the earnest perspective, okay? The negative, what's going on in that industry perspective, because that's, in my opinion, the correct perspective. So Malcolm Gladwell has written about this. Scott Galloway writes a lot about this. David Brooks just wrote a huge piece like last month about college admissions. And if you want to read like a lighthearted thing, because those are not lighthearted, when I first started, I read a book that I really liked by a guy named Andrew Ferguson called Crazy You. And he just writes like, what's going on? My kid's applying to college. This is a nightmare. And it's funny. So if you need something lighthearted, Crazy You. So in the world of college admissions, there are plenty of people who are critical, but they're just, I don't think, are people like me who've worked inside it and are willing to, sort of tell you things I've learned. The last thing I'll tell you about me and why I think I'll be good making this series is that I have just like a certain antisocial willingness to be problematic about it, It's funny because in my real life, I'm like a rule follower. Like I'm good at going to situations like the airport and figuring out the process and being like, oh, we're supposed to wait in this line and not cut the line and not be basically a pain in the neck to people around me. And I like, but in my work life, I'm not like that. So, and I don't really want any of you to break the rules, and I'm not suggesting that I break the rules. Let me give you a short example. Okay. In the world of college admissions, there are things called fee waivers. A fee waiver is every one of these colleges you apply to costs $75. That's a lot of money for families, especially because nowadays the recommendation is people apply to like 10 schools, right? So who's got $750 laying around? Not many people. So the universities say, we'll give you a fee waiver if you can't afford it. How do you prove you can't afford it? You fill out a paper that you get from your guidance counselor that says, I'm low income. Okay. How many students have any idea if they qualify as low income? Even if they are. They have a general sense that they're low income probably because that's life. But what they don't know is what the exact number is. Is it supposed to be less than 60,000? Well, it depends. Is it a family of 4? Is it a family of 2? It's a nightmare. So let's just assume for the sake of argument that a very small amount of people who deserve a fee waiver actually get one. Okay. Also, how many of these low-income parents are most likely to even know this exists in the first place? So what does Chris do? He gives everybody a fee waiver. Oh my God, the governor's going to come and arrest us. Okay. Everyone gets a fee waiver. Chris, you're going to get us all arrested. All right. Let's say there's 100 students in this school. How many of them would you say are probably don't deserve a fee waiver because their parents have money? And when I say their parents have money, I know our community, that just means they have 2 parents and they both have jobs, okay? So how many of them have money? Well, if you give out 100, I bet 10 people don't deserve that fee waiver and you just gave them a fee waiver. You're gonna get in trouble. I'm gonna get in trouble? So you're saying it's better for me to be wrong 10 times than to do what everyone else does and is wrong 90 times because you don't give anyone a fee waiver and 90 of them deserved it, okay? So that's the kind of thing that I'm going to tell you in this process. And I'll give you another one. Nobody's going to tell you what holistic admissions means. They're going to tell you what it means. Holistic admissions means we take everything into account and we evaluate your application holistically. That's true. But what it actually means is that we want opacity in the process so you have no idea what's going on. Is that 100% fair? Maybe not. But those are some rants that I wanted to give you right away to hopefully get you fired up for the next few episodes. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next episode.